And hello, everybody. We can get Ken to unmute. You there,
Yes.
Ken?
I'm here.
All right, we're joined by William Sampson,
Hello, everybody.
Mr. Sioux Milwaukee Road. So, how's everybody doing this Friday?
Splendid.
You good,
Absolutely
Ken?
splendid.
Yeah, doing well. Not out in the cold, just enjoying a beverage in the nice warm interior.
All righty. Well, let's see who we've got in our stream. If you've said hello, then maybe I've got your name here. We got Stephen, Wiggy Waggy Workshop here. Welcome. Tony Ryan from Oregon, N-Scale Fremo Extraordinaire. Tom Graberstein has volunteered from Tennessee all the way to come watch our show. Welcome, Tom. Mike Bearden, another Sioux Line Milwaukee Road guy. William, you'll get along great.
Absolutely.
Mike models, him and Bob Rivard would always go at it at the contest, I remember. And we got Chicago, Denver, and Northern is with us. And Dan from Dan's Model Railroad Journey. And, of course, fire guy Tom Tennyson, another great Northern expert. He may chime in on some of our talk tonight. Bryce Olson, welcome, Bryce. Jimmy Land. Roger Coleman, welcome to our show. Dodo Ops, of course, now we know as Brian Daughtry. Everybody's got nicknames. Tim D is here. I see Jim Ramis has just checked in. Richard Webb, welcome, everyone. Say hello. And I'll turn it over to you, Ken, and you can talk about upcoming things.
All right.
TCD.
Thank you. You know, we're almost into March, and March is going to start 3 months of madness here in the Twin Cities division. The first event will be the Modelers Meet, and I'm really pleased to see all the registrations coming in for that. That looks like we're going to have a great crowd there. And some of the people that have been talking about the things that they're bringing, it's really going to be impressive. If you remember that N-Scale Grand Depot that you saw last year, what 3 feet long? I mean, just exquisite. It's nearing completion. It's coming back, so we can see that. Randy Relander has been scratch building his Great Northern Bridge, and he's going to bring that. It'll probably be close to done, and he's going to get some help on filling out his forms for the evaluation at the TLR convention. He's going for achievement award and contest, so that'll be great. Just tons and tons of fun stuff going to be there. We have great clinics coming up. Joe Binish has got a tremendous clinic list coming, and every week now we're going to be putting out clinicians so that you can read a little bit bio on who they are. So that's in March. Then in April, we have our operators retreat, and that's for, we're opening it up for NMRA members only initially, because we've only got 21 slots, and we'd like to, of course, membership has its privileges, so we're trying to fill that up with folks, and I'm sure we'll have no problem. And you know, if we get too many people, we'll just open up more layouts. That's not going to be an issue. Then in May, it's all kind of the pinnacle of our spring when we have the Thousand Lakes Region Convention in Bloomington, Minnesota. Again, a phenomenal list of clinicians, of layout tours that are going to be open. And we're also going to do something unique there, and it's called the Modeler's Nook. And we're taking the breakfast nook that the hotel has, and once they're done serving breakfast, we're going to start doing hands-on modeling things there. There'll be the Fremo guys will show you how to build a Fremo in case you want to get interested in and build your own Fremo. We'll have the T-Track guys there showing us how to do that. We have folks coming in to do weathering with us, which all sorts of things. So it's the biggest problem you're going to find at the Thousand Lakes Region Convention is finding time to sleep. And I guess we can't take care of that for you. We're going to fill up every inch of the day we can and make it a lot of fun for you. So those are the things that we've got coming in this next 3 months of chaos here in the Twin City division. So
William,
what do you think about that?
William, what do you think of the Modelers Retreat? What have you brought, and what are you going to bring?
Well, in the past, I've brought some scale cars, 187 scale vehicles that I've done. I've brought some locomotives that I put the scale sound system speakers in for guys to hear. I brought my proto throttle last year that was hooked up to Dan Dosa's setup. So a variety of things, but I even know some of the guys that had brought things aren't even finished. It doesn't have to be a finished deal. So I did bring some of the stuff that was work in progress that needed, some details to be added to it. But I think collectively the modelers meet. Ken invited my dad and I, man, it was 3-4 years ago now, and just said, why don't you come down on a Saturday or Sunday and just see what it's about? I mean, no, we won't even charge you. It says, oh no, we'll pay. No. Just come check it out. So I did. And lo and behold, I mean, there are a lot of modelers that we don't necessarily cross paths with because they may just be working in an area that we're not privy to. And the modelers meet gave us the opportunity to see some of the super detailed stuff, to see some S-scale stuff. And I know Paul and Corey Batowski, they came out with some of their modeling. They filled a whole table last year, which was the first time they had been there. And now I believe the sign over Ken's shoulder has actually bled into Paul's modeling. So Paul has done some S-scale stuff, and it is wicked cool to see. So I think collectively to be able to see what all of us are able to do and share techniques and ideas. I did bring the infamous taco sauce that Tom consumes more than we actually maybe want to know. But I would even show how I've done that. I put it on an air slide for a couple of guys. But I'm not afraid to weather a car while we're at a meet, because guess what? By the time the meet is done, I hope I've got a weathered car, and that's a win.
Yep.
Yeah, you can get projects done. It didn't. Joe Binish, modeler extraordinaire, was building a resin kit while he was there, and you could sit down with him and ask him questions on this and that tools. That's what it is. It's an open modelers meet, show off, come for the clinics, come for the conversation.
Right.
Another
advantage this year is everybody can come and talk about Joe Binish, because his daughter was inconvenient enough to schedule her wedding on the same day as the modelers meet. And for some reason, Joe's wife seems to think that it's more important for him to be at the wedding than at the modelers meet. Go figure.
That's the only way they could get Joe not to go.
That's right.
Yeah, they want to say it. A couple more people have dropped in. Randy Dolman, welcome, Randy. Down there, River Rail member. And Graham is here. I think Graham's here from across one of the ponds. Is that
all of them, probably.
All of the ponds. I think he's joined us. I don't want to know what time it is there or what.
No, I think Graham he's on an island by himself at the moment.
I think so. I think he should.
Good to have you, Graham.
Yeah. And if he's ahead of us in time, he's never given us the winning lottery numbers. I'm quite disappointed in that.
Yeah. I agree with you. So, but speaking of Graham, as long as he's here, and I hate to speak behind his back, but Graham's going to be one of our clinicians in our Modelers Nook. So the key is, when you come to the Thousand Lakes Region Convention, bring along a model or two that you want to weather, and go home with the models weathered and some new skills. That's the key. Go home happy, go home tired, and go home with some new skills and a few weathered cars.
Yeah. All right. So we also have something going on here, Ken.
Oh yeah. Oh, and speaking of that, I got to show this off.
Oh, there we go.
So the Twin Cities Division has put out a shop, and let's see if I can do this. There you go. We've put out a shop, the Spreadshirt shop, and it's got the Twin Cities Division logo and the Crossing Gate logo in it, so you can get fancy schmancy wearables to show off to all the people. So as you walk down the street, they'll say, "Oh, it's a cool guy." And I mean, you knew that anyway. My favorite item, and the item I'm waiting for, is the 8-ounce aluminum tumbler, and I figure that's a shot glass size for S
We
scalers.
have that one here. I don't know if I got a picture of that one.
Oh yeah,
Um,
see, you didn't. I like that one. So there really are a lot of fun designs, and so the shop is open, and for a few more days, there's still 15% discount, so you can get your initial order in and save big money.
Yeah.
So show up at the modelers meet. We'll take a big group photo with everybody. We'll have a lot of fun.
And you pick the colors,
Yes,
you pick the sizes. You know, you pick what you want. If you want something you don't see, let us know.
right.
You know,
We can
maybe you
add it
want a
in.
smaller logo, or you want it someplace different. Something here for the the ladies, for the kids. There's stuff for dogs. If there's something you don't see, some baseball hats. I need a new one here. I got my Split Rock Lighthouse hat here. Let us know, because it's no charge or no effort for us to change an item. William, I
Absolutely.
think we need some 70s stuff, some Sioux Milwaukee Road there. Or whatever.
Yeah, or the curmudgeon.
The curmudgeon shirt would be great.
Ooh, I think a curmudgeon shirt. But William, the tie-dye, that's kind of Grateful Dead, and that's pretty 70s.
That is. That's a true deadhead in the 70s.
70s, yeah. Here's your operations apron. So
Yep.
you don't have to play 52 pickup with the car cards.
I'm looking forward to getting mine because it looks to me like the pouch on the apron is large enough that when I go operate on Ken Borowski's layout, if I miss a car, picking up a car, I can go back, pick it up, slide it in my pouch, and move it forward, and nobody will ever catch me.
No, it handles that way. I think this pouch you could fit your car cards, a proto throttle, your Form 19s, a couple of track warrants.
But the only request I have, though, Ken, when you wear it, you have to wear stuff underneath it. You can't just wear just the apron.
Yeah.
Don't confuse me with Dan Dosa.
Yeah. Oh,
He's a chaps guy.
he's a chaps guy. He's not here to defend himself, so of course we're going to pick on him. So
Yep.
extra points if you pick on Joe or Dan Dosa. How do we buy this stuff? All right. There's your link. So type in TCD-media-store my spread shop, and that'll come up. And then you just pick all you want. Use your discount code, and it helps out our division. You know, it is not going in anyone's pocket but all of you. And if you're not in our division but you're watching this, you're benefiting from this.
Right.
Tom, are you able to put that in the description in the YouTube video for guys that are able to click into it, or am I giving you too much work?
No, it's in there.
Okay.
It's in the conversation.
We just know the guys don't type necessarily as fluid.
Oh wait, there's okay, so Ray. I think so, stickers. Now I don't know. Ray from Around the Layout podcast, the smoothest voice in podcasting. I'll tell you, if you want to listen to a nice podcast, download Around the Layout, and hopefully we'll have some stickers soon. Ken, I think
we will. And the question is, do we introduce them at the modelers meet, or do we let people see them ahead of time?
Well, they can see them ahead of time.
Yeah,
they just got to come to the modelers meet to pick it up.
Yeah, we can tease them.
Yeah.
We can tease them. And we'd like to thank William, wonderful designer, for helping us get these logos to where they are, that we could use them. This logo, the Twin Cities division, was designed by, correct me, Ken, Jerry Leone.
That's correct.
Master model railroader. He's been on the cover of many magazines. Another great artist. And William brought him up into the 22nd century or whatever we'll go, And Tony wants to know, is there a beer hat to go? I don't know.
Is there any hat that...
The one with the two beers, is that it?
Oh, that's what you're talking about.
He's thinking top shelf classy.
Oh.
Yeah, we drink Ensign Morgan here.
Did you know Joe Benish lives on Ensign Avenue?
Yes.
So
I'd forgotten that.
I think that's one of the little things that we put in there. Yeah, the Joe's. I think we should change the street sign and take a picture for him. Is what we should do. And that's
Ooh.
yeah. Here we go. Oh yeah, the podcast charity softball game. You know, as athletic as I see most podcasters, I think we should stick to a game of cornhole. You know, whatever the beanbag does. You know,
That's probably better speed.
or maybe I'm up for rock paper scissors would be good too. We can just.
Well, it's got to be a game that you can do with one hand so you can hold your beer in the other.
Yeah, real rock, paper, scissors, or beanbag. I think that would be good.
Yep.
But if you have any questions, look it up. We'll be adding more merch. We're going to do some more slogans from the podcast and from the Twin Cities division. And hopefully the region will sign off with us. We can get the Thousand Lakes region. And charity darts. All right. And we can put up the faces of the podcasters on the target, you know. And we can just
You can aim for your favorite one.
yes.
Or not favorite.
No lawn darts. I don't know who's old enough to remember lawn darts.
Oh, we had them as kids.
Yeah. I think how many people were injured with lawn darts? Hold up your three fingers. So but yeah, so wonderful. Grab our swag, and I don't know if we have much else to mention here. Oh yeah, so let's talk about this, Ken. To get into
Absolutely. So you know believe it or not, and I trust me, I have a hard time believing this. Believe it or not, there are still people that haven't joined the NMRA, and people in the Twin Cities division geography and how anybody that lives within the sound of our voice would not join the NMRA. I don't understand. But the best deal in model railroading is this rail pass. For just 9 months, you get that for $19.95. Now, if you sign up for that and then come to the Thousand Lakes Region Convention, you save $10 on your registration. So that means this 9 months is only cost $9.95. Plus, you'll get a fancy sticker for both the podcast and the Thousand Lakes region. And probably, I think Tom will buy you a beer.
I will.
Yeah.
If you sign up, you come find me, and your money's no good at the beer thing.
Yep. And I am starting January 1st. I'm starting the list of all the new members, and we'll celebrate them at the Thousand Lakes Region Convention. So sign up now. It's a great deal.
Yeah. I think that's one of the better deals there is.
Yes. And going beyond that though, Tom, just for a second, there are so many ways for you to save money off your NMRA membership, because they have that great partnership program. Plus, if you like to take pictures or write articles, the NMRA magazine pays for both. So there's no reason why the membership should cost you hardly anything at all. And it's not a matter of cost anyway. It's a matter of all the friendships you gain and all the fun you have. So I think it's a great value, and I highly encourage everybody to hop on board.
Yeah. I think your last meal at a fast food place was more than $19.99, and you know where that is now. So
yeah.
Lots to benefit from
Absolutely.
$20. And as we like to say, $20 is $20. So.
It's $20 is $20.
Yeah.
And one other thing I hadn't thought of, you can bring your RMC and Tom will autograph it if you're an NMRA member. And he won't even charge you the $20.
Well, bring the Split Rock issue with him on the cover, though.
That's
especially.
right. That's the one.
He'll sign any copy, but
yeah. Bring the no, wrong copy there. Okay.
Yeah.
So a lot of stuff coming up. If you guys know any events, let us know. We'll post them. We'll post them on Fridays. We're going to go through the end of February, and then you saw too many things are going to take over. So I don't know. We maybe got 2 more shows left. But if you have something coming up, tell us. I think this weekend is the Madison show. But you owe me a beer. I'm already down a beer. The Facebook users signed up. So we'll go into our chat tonight, and I want you guys in the audience to chime in about what are you paying for and how much is quality. And this stemmed from a number of things. One, if you looked on YouTube and recently saw Scale Trains put out a video, right? And they put out this video that was basically apologizing for quality control issues on their amazing products. And it's kind of interesting that manufacturers are want to deliver such high-end quality items that they're not even going to send it out if it's not right. Is that worth the cost? And William, I'll turn it over to you because I know you said you had a couple analogies, and then let me know when you want me to bring up your.
Yeah, I think, I mean, collectively, this is not an attack on the manufacturer. And I don't think this is necessarily pointing out things that, you know, they did wrong or that they could do better, because they're always going to try to strive for that. I think a lot of it does come from the quality control issues that might be on the other end that is a little out of their control. But when it comes down to the analogy that Tom had mentioned, I said it's a Ford versus Ferrari. You buy a Ford, you buy a Ferrari, you know what you're getting. And if you buy that Ferrari and get a Ford motor, you're kind of looking at it going, well, this doesn't necessarily add up. I expected this high-end quality. And I think a lot of times what happens is you are advertising for a certain level of clientele, and that clientele is looking for that detail, and they're looking for all these little, you know, pieces. And if that's what they're going to deliver, and then they promise and say it's going to be the most accurate thing that's out there, the recipient is sitting there going, yeah, well, I'm going to hope that this is the most accurate thing out there because I'm going to put my money towards that more detailed item. And next thing you know, you pop the hood and it's, you know, it's a straight, you know, 4-cylinder in that Ferrari. So I'm not saying the manufacturers are, you know, trying to pull a fast one on us. I just say that there's some quality issues that surface. And one of the things that I look at, I'm a graphic designer, so I do notice right away fonts. I do notice right away, you know, logos. Those are things that my antenna is up, so I can tell a lot of times just quick glance that something's not quite right. And when that happens, I would look at it and say, okay, if you've got a high-end model, are you going to expect that it's going to be, you know, painted correctly? You can have the big debate about color, and I don't necessarily agree. You know, Big Sky Blue, we joke about it, and the Big Sky Blue is always a hit point for some people. But at the end of the day, we as modelers are looking at something. So Tom, I'm going to pull up just real quick, just a video. Now, this is a Big Sky Blue caboose. The model that it's going to be compared to is the Division Point caboose. So the prototype that is up on your screen, this is about a 20-second clip. You're going to see the difference between the two. I want you to look at the logo. The goat, that's called a profiled goat, 1967 that goat came out. And the one that's on the model is actually a 3/4 goat. We start looking at it and you're saying, well, that's not right. Well, the font to me isn't right. As you can see the difference between the two here, to me, that's a lot. And I look at the prototype and I see stroke width. Stroke width is how thick the letters are, but you look at how that letter G is actually put on the model. And then I move it forward and I'll actually back up and just give you one. If you look at this G is going to be more what I consider Arial or just a very sans serif font. You could type that up on your computer. Now, anybody that hasn't bought Division Point, I'm not going to get into the price points on these things, but let's just say that they are far more than a locomotive. You're paying for the accuracy. And when this type of detail is missed, I look at it as a recipient and say, this really stinks, because this goat that's on here is actually the center goat that would be seen on one of the red cabooses. And now you're going to say, oh, is that too detailed? Are we worrying too much about that? Yeah, well, this is the modernized 1967 design, and you just gave me 1965. It's not accurate. This isn't a tirade and a rip and say that Division Point didn't do a nice job, because these cabooses are more accurate than the Overlands. They really did their homework on a lot of the details. but this was one that I felt was missed. And if it's missed, do you guys in the chat, and you guys can throw this stuff out there, do you think the manufacturer should have to fix something like this? This is just an open discussion. Or do you think this is something that me, the modeler, we paid X number of dollars, we should fix this? I'm in the camp that I have these skills and I think I have the abilities to fix this. And if I'm told, you can just return it and then the problem's gone, you can have your money back. But we also want that prototypical caboose that is accurate to the Great Northern. These only had 30 of these on the Great Northern. They're built in the St. Cloud shops. They're very iconic. So if you model the Great Northern, why wouldn't you have an X1? I mean, that's just the way I feel as a prototype modeler. But asking, Tom or Ken, if you guys, in your opinions, am I overreacting? Am I, looking at this like, well, it's just letters, Bill, just lay a decal over it and your problem's solved? But as we flip-flop between those, I can't just lay a decal over this because that other one still shows. What are your guys' thoughts?
Well, that's a tough one, William. And you bring up the point that you have the skills, you could probably fix it. I, on the other hand, don't have those skills. And I would be greatly torn because if it's a brass item and it's very unique, do I have to have it? And boy, that is very, very difficult question. I don't know, Tom. What's your opinion?
I think for the money that you spend, it should be correct. I think, for Williams caboose, brass cabooses, as I used to buy a lot of them that they, but they never came painted. I always had to paint them home, but they still should be correct. But like I said, if the manufacturer says, send it back, I'll give you your money back, but we're not fixing it. That's kind of tough. I'm looking at the, I'm looking at the comments. Some of the people here are saying, see if I can bring up the one that cover me up. It's $1,500 on Rapido. And they won't respond. That's kind of tough. And Tony thinks quality. They've improved greatly, and I think I have. I think that's our discussion is when you buy a museum quality model, but it comes out with the wrong font or the wrong color, or what you think is the wrong color, what should be done?
Well, and that's just it. I'd still say collectively, it's not really so much the point of the amount of money that's invested in something. And, the X1 is just an example, because I would say the red ones, the Hutch caboose, I've seen the other stuff Division Point has done, home runs, phenomenal. They're beautiful, and I would look at that and say that those ones were wins. This one was a shortcoming. I mean, we could spend scale trains in some of their apologies too, and they were talking about paint color. And, again, as a graphic designer, I deal with spot colors. A spot color is the exact color. Coca-Cola spot color is a specific color that we use anytime you do stuff that was Coca-Cola related. So when you do that, it is dead accurate, and Coca-Cola is not going to come back to you and go, our red's wrong. Well, it's not wrong because we use the exact formula. The debate can always go back and forth with our freight cars because we're not Coca-Cola, for one. And our complaints and subjective nature that can be had on a caboose, that if it's in the winter or a freight car, it can be dirtier in the winter. They didn't wash it, the locomotive, your weathering's too heavy, or whatever your viewpoint might be. But do you guys in the chats look at something and then say, are you setting the standard, or is the manufacturer setting the standard? Because they do come out and say, we're going to make the best caboose that there is, or we're going to make the best SD40-2 that's out there, or SDL39, or whatever the product. Are we setting ourselves up for that? I mean, we are asking a lot of the manufacturer, don't get me wrong, but I also feel like maybe the manufacturer can also take things to the point where it's becoming too detailed. And I don't know if that's an oxymoron, but is it too detailed for something that we're looking at? Or do you guys, when we do look at the detail stuff, do you think that it's too much? Because Tom, the photo behind you in your your screen there, I know you put a lot of details into it. That is part of the modeling. I like that. I like that part. But what do you think?
Yeah, it's tough, and I think they should get it right. You look at things, and even I know color is up to interpretation of what's outside and what's inside and your fluorescent lighting and things. I'm a lot more forgiving on color, but like I said, if you're paying that much money for a brass caboose and they don't do the research on the font or the logo, or they can't prove that caboose had this different, one, it's kind of tough. And then also you get to the point where maybe they do get it right, and you have the person that says, hey, the Great Northern Blue, this blue is different from that blue. And so here we are on social media dragging them through the mud. One guy, 10,000 models sold, and one guy gets all the noise. So,
well, and the thing I would say too is, and granted, we are talking about this on a platform that I was just going to mention Sean's comment, where a rivet counter or the museum quality is extremely detailed, but if you don't have $350 to put into it, an operator SDL 39 doesn't have all those super detailed parts. But when the manufacturer is looking at it and they're saying, well, if we're going to put our time and effort into this, we've got to allocate it and say, this one's going to be the best. This is going to be our top shelf item. Well, then it would have to be as top shelf if you're going to promote it as such. I mean, you go to a liquor store and somebody says, give me your top shelf liquor. And then they pour yourself the rail and you're like, this ain't good.
Yeah, this isn't filtered 7 times.
Yeah, that's right. But it is that element, because they are going to ask for more for that particular drink. And, locomotive wise, really, it's not on. I think it's a little bit kind of best of both worlds or worst of both worlds in the fact that we expect to have this high detail because we're going to pay this much. But then we look at it and say, well, it's going to cost this much. A good point was made by a fellow modeler. I can't recall the name offhand, but he said, by the time I'm done with this project, I'm going to have over $350 into it, from the decoder, the speaker, the details, and all this stuff that he's doing, and his time. Tom, you made one of the best quotes, I think, of all time, and I'll let you kind of piggyback off of this, but your time is the most important or most costly thing that you have. So if you're going to give somebody something and you give them your time,
right,
you're giving up quite a bit. So what are your thoughts on it from your modeling perspective of the details? Is it worth the money?
Yeah, if they're generalized, I would, me modeling freelance is kind of tough, but if I was modeling the Minnesota commercial, I'd want my, John Whithouse, I'd want my 81 to look like the 81. I'd want my Great Northern Q8 Mikado to be as close to that, right size drivers and everything as I could for that amount of money. And I think what I had Tony's comment up there is real interesting, because I think we all know that there's museum qualities that I wanted. I want that brass Great Northern caboose, And then there's the stuff we're going to run at Fremo or bring to someone else's house, or layout. And one of the manufacturers is now not going to make the layout worthy cars. They're just going to model. I'll say it's Athearn. They talked about this. They're just going to make Genesis line. Are they doing it because there's more profit in it? Are they doing it because there's more demand, for the highly accurate cars and engines? Are they doing it something like, is that the demand of our hobby, that we've now demanded everything so finite that you can pick out the font is wrong?
Well, and that's the thing too. So Ray commented, Ray Arnott with Around the Layout. Again, phenomenal podcast, beautiful voice. We wish we could just hear you chime in with your question. And that was our comment. High-end details, great for photos, not so important for ops. That is very true. We've operated on some railroads that don't have this detail, and you don't need it because you're just moving the cubes and you're not concerned about that. And I'm in the boat of, I operate my own, my dad operates his, and we're big into the super detail. And I know a lot of times guys will say, well, all kinds of parts fall off. And I would honestly say on my dad's railroad, you'd be hard pressed to find cars missing grabs or having stuff damaged on them, because our operators respect the equipment. We respect what we're doing, and we're trying to be, gentle with the equipment. So maybe you're handling your equipment a little bit more aggressively. But I think Ray makes a great point in the fact that what lane are you in, right? So Tom, if you're looking for that the Mikado, or if you're looking for that exact thing, then yeah, you're in that lane of the scale trains, museum quality, or it's the Arrowhead models or the Genesis line. And no, you're not going to get an Air Slide or the 4600 hopper that you may want in a lower level. And is that okay? I mean, I know Ken, you are in S scale. Tell us the SD40-2 that you're able to just pick up out of the box, or the GP40 that you can just pull out of the box. Where are those in S scale, right?
Yeah, that's one of the facts. We just don't have that. But over the years, we've had brass engines come in that were gauged such that they would fall in between the rails. Gearing that was so poor that the engine wouldn't even run. So that happens. But one of the things that is different. No, it's not the same. I was going to say you have a lot of people that'll put PS1 lettering on a 37A AR car and call it accurate. So, but that's a different. That's on you to know what you're buying there.
Well, right, but also, Ken, I mean, there could be that little bit of a conversation. I did not know this about S-Scale, but a lot of the Mike Ostertag quoted, he called them Hulk couplers. They're these big, huge honking couplers that come on S-Scale cars, and then the pizza cutting wheels. And there's a different lane and audience in that S-Scale world that
absolutely,
that fine scale car that came out from Scale Trains, and this is what I'm kind of getting at. They put those on a fine scale car, and I thought, what are you doing? Why wouldn't you do the fine scale couplers and the fine scale wheels? He just goes bigger audience in that other with the Hulk couplers and those wheels. So those are things that also manufacturers having to take into account. And now George commented there, even though the prices go up, everything seems to sell out. I guess someone must be out there, forcing people to buy it. A lot of it, let's say that pre-order, do you guys honestly feel like the pre-order? My dad and I have kind of pushed back a little bit on, we look at a sketch now or the drawing sometimes, and that's what we're ordering off of. And that's what you are kind of hoping that maybe it's right. And then it shows up and things are different. What are your guys' thoughts on the pre-order process that a manufacturer might be offering?
My first thought, what George is bringing up about selling out, is I don't know of any high-end model manufacturer that's going to come out with an engine and not get enough pre-orders to sell it. And Rapido has shown that with some of the Fairbanks Morse and some of the cars, the carbon black car, this and this, that they've announced, and like 4 months later, they're like, we don't have enough pre-orders. We're not going to make it. If they're going to make a Jeep 38 and they're going to make a run of 25,000, all of them are going to be sold. They may be sold to hobby shops, but they're going to be spoken for.
And what's this volume though, right? We don't know. Right. Athearn used to produce 10,000 of a model. And if it's now Rapido saying 300 to 500 is a run that they have to get into to do a custom run.
Right.
Okay, great. So 300, we'll just say 300 on a freight car, and a club buys some, or enough people are buying into it and it sells out. Well, is that number really that high from a volume standpoint? Because a collector looks at it, anything under 1,000 is a pretty small run.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think Ray from Around the Layout, you probably know him, William. Some entrepreneurs are working with some manufacturers, and I think it's Home Shop Models.
Yep.
And
Chris Palmieri.
They'd make a split rock auto rack or something, but they have to make so many of, Missouri Northern or whatever.
Yep.
And then he's got stock on hand. So he's kind of taking a risk that the manufacturer doesn't. How many, you want some split rock mining boxcars? You have to buy 250. And then I'm stuck with 250 till I can sell them all.
Right. And that's the thing too, is as far as reputation, if you develop a reputation enough that you can command that type of volume, That's one thing. But if the Great Northern or the BN or, you know, some big railroads are struggling to move enough units, and they're obviously well known, is the Split Rock going to be able to? You might be sitting on those things for 10 years.
Right. Right. And I think that's what we talk, like our swag store. I never would have done the old days where you had somebody print out 200 shirts in all sizes.
Totally agree.
And at the end, you got 12 extra smalls and 12, quadruple larges and stuff. So let me twist this conversation a bit, because I saw some mention of this in chat. Rapido, if a manufacturer comes up with something wrong, something broken, something off, I think how they deal with that can redeem them. Okay. My example was Bowser came out with the big Alco 636s. Engine I've always wanted. I wanted a 636 and a C415. Those are the two Alcos. But they came out and they were wrong. And Bowser admitted they were wrong. The trucks were wrong, which made the engine sit too high, and the fuel tanks were too small. But Bowser, being a little family place, said, tell us the order number, tell us the engine, and they sent me free new trucks and free new fuel tanks. And I even got them, the ones I bought from Dan Mackey, good friend. They used to be Dave Bruns's, miss you, Dave. And so I didn't have these new, but I still wrote Bowser and I said, hey, I got these, and can I get the trucks and fuel tanks? And this is probably 4 years after the initial run, and they said yes. And I got them in the mail. And I'm hearing like Rapido and some of these other people won't answer an email. And your own experience with the brass dealer there, William. What are you in chat? Where have you had good service and where have you had bad that could have changed your opinion?
And while those guys chime in with that, Tom, I can back you up on your Bowser comment. My dad had two BN. He bought them new Bowser, and we sent them to him. They sent us new trucks, new tanks. I swapped them out. It wasn't overly complicated. A couple of wire leads and made the swap. And then our John Whithouse, local modeler here, a few years later, run into him at Scale Model Supply, and he's looking for some 6-axle Elko trucks. And I says, boy, do I have a deal for you. And he's a kit basher. He does a lot of phenomenal work. And my dad ended up selling those to John, and he put them under something. He puts them under brass units, so he's modifying stuff already. But a big kudos to Bowser for their backing. Blaine Hatfield with Arrowhead Models. I received a 4600 that I've got it sitting here. I'm not going to pull it up on the screen, but I do have the Arrowhead Models. It's the 4600 air slide or 4600 ACF that they did with Chicago Northwestern, and it was a RTR kit. If you've not heard of one of those, a ready to run kit, because there were parts and pieces rattling in the box that I don't put that on Blaine. I don't put that on Arrowhead Models. I put that a lot of times maybe on how it was handled in shipping when our box looked like it had been stepped on. But I did reach out to Blaine, and I feel like let the manufacturer defend themselves. I know that some of these guys have chimed in and said that Rapido didn't respond to him. Blaine responded to me not even maybe 10 minutes after I sent him a Facebook message at like 10:30 at night. And I do not expect a guy to respond at 10:30 at night. He went above and beyond, had said, I'm going to reach out. I have to try to find those. They're a limited run. I have to find a car to be able to replace it. I said, I tried gluing the thing on. I'll send this one back to you if you want to, take it back. But going above and beyond as a small dealer, because that's another thing, right? Bowser did it. Blaine is doing it. And he's doing the best that he can, because I've got the exact car by Athearn rather. And Athearn did the exact 4600. And between the two, I probably don't need as much detail as Arrowhead Models had done on that. I look at the details on the Genesis and think that's probably good enough. But those small manufacturers, I bought the car to support Blaine. I bought the one. I didn't need it. They hauled malt for beer, or I don't know, is it hops or malt? I don't know the actual definition of what goes on behind these cars, but I know it's for beer, and I don't have that on my railroad. But I'm trying to help. Say that again.
We'll ask Greg Dahl.
Yes, but that's where do we support those small manufacturers sometimes by making that purchase to say, hey, buy that t-shirt that's in the store for the NMRA or the Split Rock Mining Company to help that guy out that's putting that time into create a video or to be able to create some content. And again, helping the NMRA, that's money that's helping the people that are members get a little something back too.
Yeah.
Did we get any comments, Tom, out of the thread that would be of interest?
Yeah, people are noting who handles it. Ray said the best thing. Everyone makes mistakes and not how they handled it. Graham says he got service the next day in Australia. That pretty much shocks me. You know, I've heard this people say Intermountain. Tony here came with bent axles wheels, but I run metal wheel sets, so they had to change them out anyway. And there's another thing there too. You know, if I'm gonna swap out horns for Details West, something nice, and if it comes, well, that's not the right horn. You know, I'm cutting it off anyway. You know.
Yeah. You know, I mentioned I used to help as helper service out, and actually made a trip to the factory in China, and sadly the people in China, they're nice people and very qualified, I'm sure, but they have no clue what they're really doing, like we do. They don't have that level of detail. So S Helper got the samples of a turnout, and they were perfect. And so the shipment came in, they started shipping them out, and then they found out that between the prototype run and the actual run, they wired everything backwards. So it was a power routing switch, and all the wires were backwards. And boy, that's tough on a manufacturer when that happens. I don't know if people have been reading, but Ford just shut down the F-150 or F-350 Lightning line because of quality and parts. And they've admitted that they're $1 billion behind in costs, everybody else, because of the quality and the parts issues that they're having. So this is not unique to model railroad manufacturers. So.
Oh yeah, this applies to everything. William, you want me to bring that up?
Yeah, go ahead. And this is really to kind of talk about two cars that are exactly the same. These are both those 4600s that I just mentioned. For you guys viewing on your screen, Arrowhead is on top with the Genesis Athearn on the bottom. Roof walk differences. I believe that Blaine has the accurate roof walk pattern, but I like the etched metal look to it. And I said then even on the details on the ends, quality control, it kind of bends up a little bit. We know Athearn has made tons of ACFs over the years, so they've really perfected their style. Blaine, this little support that you're looking at on your right-hand side there, they were white, and he declined and told them it can't be white, it had to be yellow. So you can see that they did paint it yellow, but he declined the order to get a little detail like that right. That's a little subtle thing to kind of pick up on. I didn't like the way the roof walk kind of goes across the top, but at the end of the day, I felt like I look at the two, his hatches across here. These hatches are accurate to the prototype, and Athearn just has a very basic one, and it's all molded. It's not really detailed like the one that's on the Arrowhead. But I start to look at it, and I asked myself when I got done with this, which of these two do I really want? I don't need either of them. If I were to buy another one, which one would I buy? Now, I did do a review on these, so you can find out my answer on that when I do release the video on it. But I do want to at least talk to you guys in regards to some of those extremely finite details. This is a more modern roof walk, but do you want it? Do you want it to your era? I mean, are you going to hold a candle to it? Because between these two, it's support the little guy or support Genesis. I mean, how many of you guys are on that bandwagon of, I guess the one gentleman that mentioned earlier, I don't know if that was Tim, that said that they all sell out anyhow. I think Blaine sold out of his, and when I asked for some help on an issue with it, he's looking to replace it. So he doesn't have supply because he sold it out. I think Tangent does the same thing. He gets it, he sells it, and then once it's gone, it's gone. So what do you guys think as far as a detail overload? Is there a possibility of just too much detail?
I think if you don't have a small layout, here, if I had a large layout and I wanted a unit grain train, would I want these or would I fill it up with blue boxes? People ask me that about my ore cars. I've always wanted to take one ore car, rip off all the stirrups, put on the lift rings and the pin lifters, and throw it back out there and see if anyone notices. So I think this, to me, the detail is, what do you like? I like the see-through walkway, the one there on the top.
Right.
I don't know if it's right or not. I like it.
I think it's finer, and it also is natural metal. And I don't know if they're trying to emulate or simulate, rather, the white, if it's supposed to look like that oxidized, or if it was painted white. Because I think if it's painted white, I don't know if the prototypes were. I don't see many shots of these up top. But that's where I do start to look at it and go, they're the manufacturer. They must have all the details and really dial it in.
Yeah.
Now, I see Ray has commented that he didn't want to accept a lower quality to support a small business versus a big business that has higher quality. I would say between these two, the better quality of details coming out of Arrowhead, 100%. The hatches are nicer. The details are better. It's the execution, in my opinion, when I do mention, the end, the way the roof walk is applied. The accurate car between these two, in my opinion, is the Arrowhead models. But I do look at the Genesis car and think, I don't need all that detail.
Yeah. Like I said, look at the brake rigging, coupler lift bars, things like that. And I agree with Roy that, I like supporting the little guys. I like Bernard and Mini Prints very much, very, very much. But I've also bought stuff from other 3D printers that, do certain things that he can't do. Let's see what Tony says here. Yeah. And that's the operator. And I always found that interesting that Scale Trains and Athearn, to a point, still came out with 2 or 3 levels and price points. And I don't know whether everybody wanted museum quality, because didn't Scale Trains even come out with a kit?
Yeah, they've got a kit version. They did their they had a couple of hoppers that they've done a few runs. They've done some box cars. There's been an M&S box car that they had done that I thought, man, I wish it was in a detailed form, but those have the molded grabs on it. And for me, I'm not taking my cars on and off the railroad, because I do think that's a valid point for guys that are in clubs or they want to rotate their equipment. You're handling it more. And, my dad even said himself that there's cars he wants to get on the railroad. But then I says, well, then you got to take some cars off just for operation purposes because it gets too crowded. And then you look at it and you're like, well, I don't want to be handling these cars that much because they are so detailed. And that is a choice that's being made by, the operator or the modeler.
I know. And Ken, so let bring it to S-Scale. Let's bring it to the brass, And I've heard people say that when S-Scale manufacturers are going to make like a brass steam engine, they're hoping to make 25.
Right.
And if you're only making 25 of, a Rio Grande K37, I think it should be right.
Absolutely. The other funny thing about brass, and I know this is in other scales too, is brass usually puts a light show on because there's so many shorts when you try to run it. So, but another thing that is a new one is the 3D printed product. I have a 3D printed box car and the kit, and the manufacturer bragged about how accurate all the pieces were. The grab irons are the correct size, and believe it or not, guys, most of your grab irons in HO are grossly oversized. But the challenge with that is that they were so brittle. And if you have metal, if you can do that in metal, that's fine. But when you do it in plastic and 3D print them, boy, those things are brittle. So I've got a beautifully built car, and it took me, I had to buy 3 sets of grab irons to get one car done. It's done. It's on a shelf, and I'm afraid to put it on the layout because, I think I might sneeze and break a grab iron.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I still think you get what you pay for, and if something's damaged, you should get
Yes.
some help from the manufacturer, even if it's insured for shipping. If it happens in shipping, you can do something like that.
And just talking a little bit, not quite 3D printed. This is a resin C415 that Tom wants, but we needed Joe Binish to create for Greg Dahl. This is just an example, in my opinion, of what beautiful modeling can be done. As a modeler, we have the opportunity to create these details. Joe brought this over to be able to have it programmed. I helped him program while he and Dave Voss did some operating. But this is just one way to be able to obviously get something that we can't get until Joe finishes it. So I hope now we got our fingers crossed, Joe, or we might get this C415. But to Ken's point, if something isn't available, there are a lot of guys creating stuff that now we can get it. I know it took Joe a lot of work to be able to get it to where it's at, and it runs and looks better than the photo. The photo doesn't do it justice. I think we're a little too close to it sometimes, because when you look at these models, they really are exquisite as the modeler that creates them, right? I mean, it might not be something that a person would want to just dive into and do, but once you've honed your skills and you've gotten the ability and you can create these type of things, the opportunity of that modeling, I always feel like, am I going back in time because I like this type of stuff? You guys pull out some of the kits. I think, again, I'm going to go back to Paul Batowski in his S scale, that he had an old S scale kit that he was replacing parts on and putting the thing together. But that modeler is creating something that's pretty impressive that most people would look at and go, who makes that? Yeah. Well, Ken Batowski makes it. In this case, Joe Binish makes it, right? Yeah. So are we as modelers starting to get a little bit too armchair comfortable and just let the manufacturer make it? I'll pay whatever they want, and that's why they sell out.
Yeah. It'd be interesting to see what the business of Canon and Company, is doing. And so look at this C415, and I know they came out with this kit in resin, but there was a lot of work to do. And so you look at the side handrails, which Joe did with wire, and they're fine scale, they're the correct size. We couldn't find end handrails, so we stuck on the old HM or Tyco ones, and it's a 2-inch lead pipe for a handrail. and yeah, I was thinking about getting one of these. I would like 2 for the split rock, and then I'm also looking at how nice the Overland brass ones are. But the Overland brass ones, how accurate and detailed and just beautiful they are like a mortgage payment.
But that's getting us back into that, Tom. So going back to that caboose I mentioned, you want an X1 that's accurate. Yes, Overland makes ones. Yes, you can buy one and call it good enough. But when you want to take it to that level of detail, I said the interior, and I don't have it taken apart right now, but that X1 is painted interior. It is got the ladder inside there for the guy to climb up to sit up in the cupola. There are details that go beyond what you're seeing on the exterior. And as a modeler, I can appreciate it. I know it's there. I feel like I might have to add lights to this thing to be able to really, truly appreciate it. But my dad usually doesn't run in the dark, so you don't have to try to look inside and see it lit up. But that's a great point in the fact that Joe's, C415, it is that super detailed because of the modeler. I mean, Joe even said he doesn't like the end grabs. So, Joe, you're not here to compliment or comment on this, but I know you mentioned it. I think that's taking it to the next level. He's seeing something in this that he would want to improve still. So if the manufacturer made it, great, big deal, but it still might need to be upgraded or detailed. Now, one of the guys commented here, and this is just kind of open to the group. When you guys are in the thread, who do you think would make a C415? Is it going to be Atlas? Is it because they have their Atlas runs? Is it going to be a Rapido because Rapido's doing their RS11s? Do they got a little bit, you got your trucks, you got your tank, you got enough of the details there to create this thing?
Yeah. I don't know, but I know as soon as I build one, they'll make it. So I'm holding off.
Or you put that mortgage payment on those. I bought the SDL 39s, they're brass, finally saved up and bought one. And that's when Scale Trains came down and brought it out.
Yeah. That's the same. Bowser saved me from brass C636s and stuff. But no, I I don't want, if I'm having a C415, I'm like you. It's like your caboose. I want the exact one I want. I want the high adhesion trucks. I want the other exhaust stacked. I want the open windows. Tony Ryan's here. His dad worked for the SP&S, ran these things. I want the opening windows to see the engineer. I want the see-through vents. And I think the amount of work I'd have to put into this to bring it up to an Overland standard has kept me from doing this. But I admire it. I admire Joe tenacity on this. I admire John Woodhouse for turning out his Alcos.
Well, and that's what's perfect, though. I feel like, Tom, you nailed it right in. So if somebody does come out with the C415, I think the answer is pretty simple. Tom, are you going to buy one?
Yeah, I'll buy two.
So it's going to be $300, and he's got his fingers up. He's going to drop $600 on it.
Yeah.
So now, with that said, your time, you mentioned that earlier, your time to be able to model that, what goes into one of these models. I bet you Joe might take, $600 to make one of these, or maybe even two. Right. But the point still is there. The amount of time and effort that Joe took to get to that level is taking him years to develop that skill to get there. So his time that he's put into it to get there, not everybody has that. So if you're a guy sitting there at home and you're like, dang, I cannot do what Joe just did. Bowser just says, hey, we've got C415s coming out. They're $300. It looks like there are guys that are going to pay that. And that's where I think the manufacturers kind of got you over a barrel a little bit, because as these guys are pointing out, I didn't catch who's the manufacturer of that resin. Somebody had mentioned
Pacific Northwest.
Thank you. So Pacific Northwest comes out with it, basically says, here you go, boys. Here it is. And how many people are just banging down their door, kicking these things out as fast as you can possibly, do it. We can take it out of our box, take a photo of our new X1 caboose and say, look what I got. It's done. It's ready to go. Is the price that bad?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean, you just answered it, I think, Tom, saying that you'll buy two C415s at $300. And again, you start looking at these numbers and you think it's crazy. I don't think it's real crazy. I mean, David Winter already said, take my money. Right. I mean, if it's done and it's road specific and the manufacturers are providing this to us, how can we not sit there and say, yeah, I want one? And then when it comes up, and because we become experts in certain fields, now we start looking at it going, it's missing this. It's missing that. Now we're picking it apart. But dang, they brought you a lot further than you would be if you would have bought in that Pacific Northwest resin kit.
Right.
So let's at least be honest about that conversation and say, guess what? You got a lot further than you would have, because it's not an Overland. You didn't have to pay for the brass price, and it's also not unfinished resin. So I think there's that little bit of a dance to be had, and our expectations could be high. But when you really start getting into crazy numbers like brass or division point, that's when you start to go, am I paying too much? Should I expect this to be right?
Yeah. Because, well, maybe let's put it this way, being a brass caboose of a prototype railroad, or a Rapido caboose prototype, you'd want to take it out of the box and put it on the layout.
Yes.
If this was available, Bowser, hey, here's your C415 Burlington Northern with the right trucks and everything, $300. Tom would still be putting another $300 into it, right?
Yes.
I'd have to strip it, paint it, decal it, put on my home road details, the correct horn, the bell, all that stuff to match. Put on the correct, decoder buddy, right sound, the right soundtrack sound, the speakers, redo the lights. Have my buddy William, put it. So even if I bought two of them at $300, and not counting my time, I'm almost putting in another one here. And so here's what I want to bring. Tony brought up this. And I've seen this from manufacturers who go live on YouTube. Athearn, Rapido, Scale Trains. They don't want to do undecorated kits.
Right.
As much as we like having the Pinewood and Northern and the Split Rock Mining, nobody buys them. That's, if you're going to model freelance, my opinion is, if you want an RS-27, you're just going to look for the least expensive RS-27 and strip and paint it anyways. And that's what they're figuring out. They don't want to make undecorated stuff anymore, which is sad.
I was just going to say, though, but are they? Because would you want to strip? I mean, you have the skill, I know, because I've seen the work that you've done as a modeler, to be stripping stuff, to then be repainting it and lose details down the drain, or all the stuff that goes into stripping a locomotive. You start to kind of get into that road of, oh, they don't have my road. Like, I'll just use the M&S as an example. Graham can sympathize with me a little bit. Athearn comes out with the SW1200. M&S had 2, and I took the one that I had and I stripped it. It was a Sioux Line one. It's all correct as far as a lot of the general details. But I look at that and say, the RTR won't be at the level in which I want it on my railroad. So if I buy an RTR, I'm going to have to detail it anyhow. It's going to get painted, and I will. I think I got one on order, maybe even have both numbers on order. It's still a lot for an RTR, but then you're adding that added detail. They're doing all the painting, great. Yeah. But then I also have one over my shoulder that I've already done all the detail work to try to get myself to that next level. And I think that's where we have a conversation to say, much like the guys that want the operator, that RTR is an actual decent level for Athearn. Some of their stuff that you look at and say a few MU hoses, a couple other little details on there, and you got yourself a pretty close to a Genesis type locomotive, minus, some of the nuances that we all start to become accustomed to as far as, specific details. Cause it is accurate. It's just a little bit pushing it over that finish line.
And one more thing too to mention are these, get my correct grammar, are these models only for such a small portion of the hobby? And I'll paraphrase this with an example. People love the railroad in New Jersey called Northlands. Okay, just the immense size, 500 loops, trains are going everywhere. And it's all just right out of the box, ready to run, and everybody enjoys it. They wouldn't know a Great Northern X1 caboose versus, a Great Northern Santa Fe type.
Right.
That never existed. So are they taking a risk at bringing, the M&S SW1200 number, 34 or something, and it's for the 50 guys that model it and who poo-poo it,
But I think that's right. I mean, I've talked to Rapido directly about the SW1200s that they did, obviously, in Sioux Line paint, and said, would you do M&S? I've got the research for it. I've got the photos for it. I've got the information to be able to create this to the best that you guys possibly could create. And they looked at it and says, do you have 300 to 500 people interested in buying?
Yeah.
Well, no. So to your point, Tom, be grateful in some cases for those small roads that come out. And again, we don't know how many Athearn creates. Maybe they are only 50 that get painted into that blue. I don't know.
Well, how do they make Minnesota commercial engines?
But that's what gets crazy prices too then, right? So Minnesota commercial, you see stuff that pops up now. It was Rapido that did the Monster of the Midway. You see those things pop up and people will fill their shorts and go, what is this, brass? Well, they clearly didn't make that many because when they pop up, boy, they get crazy.
Yeah. I don't know. It's interesting. But like I said, for quality, is the majority of the market happy with that Bachmann War Bonnet FT? And then there's the 1% of us who want that Athearn Genesis F7 22L, that's painted in the 1968 scheme with the silver overspray and things like that. So, okay, one more. We'll go to this truck here.
Well, I'm going to close you guys, or at least when we talk about the cost of a hobby, this here is sitting probably about 4 or 5 inches off the ground. It is voice activated. I don't know if you guys can necessarily hear the audio of the voice. Do you hear it? Yes or no?
Yeah.
Okay, so you don't even need to, but look at this thing. This is a kid's toy, essentially, right? So if we look at this and say, and I'm talking to it, I told the thing to turn around, and I tell it to turn around again, and it keeps obviously trying to turn around, and I'll tell it to transform back down to its regular size. Okay, now it's going to transform back to the truck. Now, we watched this as kids. This is 80s era kids. Now, are we talking about something that, as far as a model is concerned, that it's expensive? Okay, you just watched that little video. Does anybody, I'll let Tom and Ken throw a number on the board, and guys in the message, how much is that particular truck?
I don't care. I'm buying it. I don't care. Just take my money. I want.
Give me a number.
$30.
Okay, Ken's in at 30.
I'm in at 50.
You're in at 50. Tom, times yours by 10, and you're still 200 short. Okay, so that is the cost of a hobby for people that are interested in robotics. The thing has, I think it's like 27 servos in it to create what it is, voice activated, all this stuff. Over $700. You guys were way light in the chat. Everybody's at 30, 120, 150. $700 for the base model. You can spend $1,000 to get yourself a limited edition version. Okay.
You said it was a kid's toy.
Yeah.
Who's going to spend $700 for a kid's toy?
An adult kid's toy, Ken. That's the difference.
Oh, like a Rapido or like a, yeah, okay.
Yeah. See, it's all those toys that we play with. We play with all these toys.
So you're saying it's still cheaper than a bass boat, though, right?
A little bit.
Okay.
A little bit. And before we close out here, Tom, you did say, just from a plug standpoint, I ran into some issues. Any guys that follow the YouTube channel, Sioux Milwaukee Road, I had an upload issue that I ran into. I did manage to finally get the video up and running. And once I finally got it up, it's starting to kind of pick up a little bit of traction. But I had the opportunity to take some original footage that Bob Rivard had provided me of a crew that was actually talking on the radio, and Bob got the conversation captured. And to me, we're not going to get into that now. You guys can pop over after the feed ends to kind of check it out once we skip the ads here. But I do go over some weathering. Little Leave It to Beaver gets kind of mixed in for us. But one little fun fact, if you watch this, there's actually guys in the caboose and a guy in the locomotive that have a relation to one another. And to me, I said, as a prototype modeler, this is the type of stuff that I look at and go, man, that's cool. I want to model that. And I do cover some of the weathering techniques and stuff that replicates another car that Bob had captured. But for us modelers to be able to have the opportunity to kind of weather and get ourselves to this level, as we talked in this conversation tonight, is it a little crazy to worry about these details? I mean, yes and no. It's the level of craziness of the guy or the operator. You got to be a little bit special or different sometimes to be an S scale, because those guys are unique birds. But the obvious thing is I've got the most respect for the S scalers that are out there for the work that they put into what they create, because what they can't get from a manufacturer can be made and created kind of in the 3D world or whatever it might be. And like Tom had talked about with a lot of the details, is we expect, I think, a lot from manufacturers, but really at the end of the day, we're the ones that are kind of setting that bar. We are the ones that are purchasing the stuff that the manufacturers are making. And sometimes our standards might be much higher than what a manufacturer's standards might be. But when that price point goes up, if it's not a Ferrari, but they say they're going to sell us a Ferrari, we don't want to pop the hood and see that Ford engine. Right. And that's, to me, where I think that conversation has to have a little bit of honesty between what do we expect and what do they expect to deliver.
So I have a really an off-the-wall question that it really changes the subject here, but we have a lot of experts out there. If a guy was going to take out, like, say, 16 feet of hydrocal and sculpt mold hills and mountains, rip it out of their basement layout, should he have worn a dust mask?
Are you asking for a friend? All right, all right. So how old was the plaster? Was that this century or was it?
No, it was last century.
No, see, it always is that asbestos question always comes into play as the age of the model that you're cutting up.
Ooh, ooh. I wish
Yeah.
I hadn't said that.
Yeah. Yeah, asbestos. It makes great snow, though. I mean,
Oh yeah,
if
yeah.
you ever seen the movie White Christmas? All the snow in there is asbestos. Yuck.
Is that why
No.
all those actors died so young?
I think so.
That and the cocaine.
Well,
Yeah.
there's that. But yeah, well, I think to the point that we started was if we're going to pay for these brass cabooses, C636s, and my, MacGyver truck there, it better work and it better be right. And the excuse better not be, you don't like it, send it back, here's your money. I think how manufacturers who handle adversity on the high end as well as low end do so well.
Mm-hmm.
And the rest go by the wayside.
But there's always, I think, as a modeler, always room to reciprocate and try to work with what you've got. If it's missing that coupler lift bar, I wouldn't lose my pants over it. I would just put a coupler lift bar on there, even though I take sometimes air hoses off of tangent cars and people have a heart attack. And I look at those type of things, and we as modelers should always have that license to be able to come in and talk to a community like this and just say, what would you do? I did ask Bob Rivard what he would do with that caboose, and he goes, a little 800 grit sandpaper would fix that. And I'm like, I've never done that before. He goes, I do it all the time.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, he's developed a skill that he's confident with it. But never forget that we always have the ability to pivot and move within the arena and the space. We got to be grateful for a lot of the stuff that they are creating.
Yeah. I think I'm very grateful. Tandos and I talk about this all the time. We made joke and jest about the blue tub modelers or I don't know if Roy Ultim's still here. What did he call it? The BMT club, the Buy More Trains Club. But if it wasn't for the blue tub modelers, I wouldn't have RS-27s or RS-32s.
Right.
They're not going to make them for the five of us who like them. John Whithouse and I would be bored to death with our Atlas RS-11s. So, I thank the guys. But I do think, like you said, going back to the C415s, even a Bowser one, I'm going to put $300 into it. So why would I get the resin one? Not picking on the resin one, but the resin one would cost me even more time and more effort because I have to make the handrails, have to make the chassis, have to do the motor. It is. It's a tough question, and I like that Scale Trains is addressing it. I like that they're honest, saying these tank cars weren't right, we're sending them back. These engines weren't right, we're sending them back.
Well, and that's accountability.
I love the comments where people said Intermountain helped me, Proto helped me. These people,
yes,
I'm not here to drag anybody.
But I feel like as a team, I mean, you're only as good as your weakest link, and I think team sports, as I played them throughout my career, is that you learn from one another, and dragging down one manufacturer isn't necessarily going to elevate another manufacturer. You got to still work within the arena of what skills are there and how can you amplify those. Can you catch them? Can we as the community catch them and at least say, hey guys, I mean, my one beef I guess with the SDL 39 is, Tom, you're well aware of that Aaron Henney rotary RB4 beacon or RB1 beacon. That's what they had on them, and they didn't have that on the Scale Trains. Yeah. Oh, well, I'm going to have to just either replace it or just live with it.
And like we said, for me to have the accurate beacon, because I would know, we've always talked about that. Why do you do things that only you care about? That beacon wasn't cheap.
No.
It was a little under $40 each beacon. So there's part of your $300 you're adding.
Well, 4 LEDs, the little circuit board or Arduino that goes into it, they're creating that stuff. There's research involved. I mean, there's a lot of components that come into play.
Right. But so I understand it, because another one of my sales pitches for having a small layout and a limited roster is I can do all those things. If I'm modeling the Masabi and I need 70 engines, they're all getting the light bulb that blinks. It's just, I'm like,
Well, and that's the part of volume, I guess, too. There are some N scale guys that we've been able to be connected with through, Ken and his N scale community that he's introduced me to, and I've seen DM and IR stuff. And when you mention the volume, one of the gentlemen that I met at a flea market recently, Ken introduced me and says, this guy does N scale and he does DM and IR, and he showed me a photo of his workbench. And I honestly have to say there had to be 15 locomotives lined up, boom, 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 from SD18s to SD9s and all these different variations, different colors. He had an assembly line on his own desk that, to your point, Tom, if there's a detail in there that's going to have, do you think he's going to put ground lights on every single one of those? Do you think he's going to put step lights on every single one of those? Not when you're in volume, right?
Right.
So I think a big part of that is kind of that lane of manufacturer, and it also, what is the user doing with it?
Yeah. What is it? And I weighed that out with the RS11s. I would love the Rapido RS11s for how they looked, but I knew I'd have to strip them, and I knew I'd have to swap out decoders, and I knew I'd have to repaint them and detail. I'm like, might as well just start, with the Atlas. And what's worth your time and money, like that, that X1 caboose, would it be different, if you couldn't get decals for that caboose? Would it be different if, you couldn't remove the lettering or something, because you'd have that running around your layout for the next 5 years. It would get to you. I know, right. I know it would drive me crazy.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm going to just grab one thing real quick. You guys keep chatting here. There's a question in the thread that I'll provide a little proof to.
Okay.
All right, what do we got here? Was the photo of your locals on a spoof? It probably was a spoof. You can't find them. It's the January RMC.
Right there. And just for Dwight, it is 100% legit. This is Tom's Railroad. Great little article, and not little article. It's actually fairly robust. I did do the track plan for Tom. I did do the illustrations. That's the first track plan layout that I've ever done that has gotten published outside of modifying my own for Tom Klomoski's book. But if any of you guys haven't seen it, do find it. It's the January 2023 Railroad Model Craftsman, Split Rock Mining. It's not a spoof. It is real. It was on the shelves out there. And the reason you can't find one, Dwight, is because everybody bought them up. I mean, they were just hot as they could possibly be.
Yeah. They're sold out. I mean, even at Amherst, I had my friends walking around Amherst. It wasn't around.
So, Tom, the thing is did you buy the majority of the extra copies and then now you're going to roll them out there for $20, $30 a pop?
Yeah, you'll see them on eBay.
Yeah.
I got to pay for some C415s somehow.
$5, Tom Gazer.
Those C415s aren't cheap. We just talked about that. So,
well, that's how you fund it. You buy up the marketplace in other areas to be able to fund your addiction.
Yeah. What's interesting is RMC, like any other magazine, wants, as many photos you can send them so they can pick and choose what'll fit in their space. And there's probably 5 or 6 they didn't publish, but they've been using those on their social media. Like Greg Dahl showed me the one on Instagram, because in the article, they didn't have Dosa Tunnel or anything like that, or the downtown, but I think they're putting them up on Instagram as the time comes. So the velvet ropes, yeah. I did autograph one at Scale Models. I thought that was funny, but I didn't charge $20, Ken. So
he charged 30.
Yeah.
It's whatever the market would spend. And somebody asked earlier about getting personalized wearables. All you need to do is bring your TCD NMRA shirt to the modelers meet, and Tom will sign that shirt for you. So then it can be personalized.
Yeah.
You know.
Now I know you guys are mentioning the NMRA one as well as the Crossing Gate one, but Tom also has his Split Rock one, which you kind of dabbled on prior. You can put those links all together. See, look at that model.
Look at that.
Oh, look at the girly figure.
Wow.
Well, wait a minute.
It's tie-dye.
Oh, it was Ken. Oh,
It's tie-dyed.
I thought Marilyn had walked in. My bad.
The model Maryland. That's the Split Rock because it is 1969.
That's right.
That's perfect for the tie dye.
So the hippies up in northern Minnesota, and there's
All three of them.
I think there's a VFW, so there's 2 hippies outside protesting at the VFW.
Yeah, yeah. Some of us, Tom, are old enough to remember 1969, and I know William wouldn't be one of them, but
Nope.
Oh. Yeah, I remember it too. Something about the moon or whatever happened that year.
yeah, yeah.
So, but good discussion. Thank you guys in chat.
Yes, absolutely.
Bring your models to the modelers retreat. I don't care what shape they're in or what stage. William preached it, Ken preached it. If you have something half finished, people, you're more interesting because then we can see how you're doing it.
Right.
You know.
I even talked to Bob Rivard the other day and told him he was working on a project. I won't tell you what it was. He said that it was so detailed and so cool to look at before he has painted it. I said, Bob, don't paint it. I know you paint stuff faster than any of us can possibly get stuff done. Don't paint it. Bring it with you to the modelers retreat so people can see how much work you put into this stuff. And I says, it'll be cool. And he goes, oh, that would be great. Oh, that would be awesome. So I hope Bob doesn't paint it. So Bob, if Bob catches this feed, please don't paint it. It's cool to see. And hopefully you guys can check that out as well. Anybody that's even on the fence for attending, it's worth attending. If you can make it to get there on Saturday, if you can't make it on Friday, just show up for the Saturday, do that. I always thought too, I mean, just even for the cost, it's well worth the cost of admission. I mean, if anything, you know, I would say just collectively the camaraderie and the conversation is worth it in itself for basically going to hang out with a bunch of knowledgeable modelers. And if you don't think you're a knowledgeable modeler, just start talking and somebody will start pulling information out of you, because that's where we exchange so many of these techniques, tips, manufacturers, products. Tom, you turned us on to VMS, that clear coat spray. When Tom shows you that in person, he did some steel loads, and I'm not saying you have to bring your steel loads with you, but
They're showing up.
The work that you do, and when you look at these steel loads, you have to see them in person. I showed it to my dad, and he goes, isn't it just printed on there? He says, no, it's a decal. You cannot see the lines on it, and that's the type of stuff that you see in person, and it's just hands down phenomenal.
Yep.
So David, Ken, answer David's question here, and then we'll.
So is there paperwork to bring to the retreat? Well, the $15 is the paperwork for getting in, but no, you don't. But another point there is we will have paperwork there if you want to prepare your paperwork to have it evaluated as an achievement award or in the contest. We will help you with that. I'm also going to bring one of the achievement award, the dispatcher one that I'm working on, and I'll bring that paperwork along so that I can have people look at it, see how I did it, and maybe get some tips on how to get it ready to turn in. So,
yeah. When you show up with your models, we'll have lots of tables.
Yep.
Find a space. If you don't have a lot of models, share a space. I'm only going to bring about 5.
Yep, I shared a space last year.
And I'll personally, what we do is get a sheet of paper. You just please tell us your name.
Right.
We put models by, you know, Tim Hamilton, Tom Gabers, whatever.
Yep.
And then please do not touch.
Right.
And then I'll also be going around and photographing.
Right.
Well, I see Tim just signed up tonight, so I'm looking forward. I've seen Tim at some of the shows. It's going to be, it's nice to see some of you guys that we don't necessarily see on a regular basis.
Right. Right.
Yeah. So
as well as out-of-staters, I know there's a few out-of-staters that are trickling on in too. So it's kind of neat to see you guys coming from, you know, the Wisconsin side of the border. There's a couple come up from Iowa.
Yep.
And we know after the show on Saturday, I know people have gone rail fanning. I'm hoping everybody goes out for dinner, or, you know, there's lots of really great places to go hang out even more.
Right.
And, but it's just such a fun day. Last year we had one clinic every hour. This year we're going to have 2.
Right.
So you'll have choices.
Well, and I have a challenge then, I guess, collectively, is that anybody that attends, if you're not having a good time, come find one of us and let us know and why you're not enjoying yourself. Because I think you're going to be hard pressed not to find something that you'll find enjoyable, exchanging of information. And I guess any complaints Tom has just noted, relay them to Ken. His email address is.
Yeah, no, really, that's okay, because that's what we work hard at. And when we talk about the TLR convention, my goodness, there's so much going on from 9 o'clock in the morning till 10 o'clock at night, and oftentimes later in the bar. Your biggest problem is going to be finding time to sleep. So you always
true.
sleep
You
Monday
could go
at work.
Friday right into Saturday wearing that tie-dyed shirt.
I could. Yep. But I'm going to probably have my, I'll have a crossing gate one on for Saturday, and then sometime in the middle or Friday, and then sometime in the middle of the night, I'll have to change it to a TLR one. So
yeah, you'll do that there. But yeah, I think what William said, come on in, ask questions. Fremo's going to be set up.
Yep.
And there's everything going on. And we will, if you have a complaint, bring it to Ken. But if you have a complaint,
that's okay.
If you have a complaint about the hobby, it's $1.
Right.
The jar's coming back.
Oh, all right. You've been putting a little twist on it.
If you think the hobby is dying, the hobby's too expensive, and then what else are we gonna pick on this year? We gotta find something else. The SD39. But if you want to complain, Dan Dosa has a table, clinical psychologist. He'll listen to you, but it's $1. So
right.
Bring your one.
And that's a bargain. Usually he's $300 an hour.
Yeah.
But now he's retired, so he's really gotten a lot cheaper with his rates.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So there will be the complaint jar. You can complain.
Yep.
Fuck. So.
Very good. All right, folks. Thank you very, very much for hanging out with us on a Friday evening. We had a good time.
Yep, I would agree. I thank you all for chiming in and carrying on with our conversation. And if it sounded like we knew what we were talking about, we pulled it off.
That's right. That's right.
So, all right, everyone, have a good week.
Yep.
We'll see you next Friday, and then we'll be wrapping it up after that. Thanks, William. Thanks, Ken.
Yep. Thank you, Tom.
And here we go.